Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Connie from Faff Designs. I am a furniture painter and I'm also a brand ambassador for Dixie Belle paint. In the video today, I've got this piece behind me which is pretty cool, very unique, and I've given it a unique finish as well. So stay tuned and hope you enjoy the video. Righty-ho, first things first, the base coat of this might surprise you, the colours might surprise you anyway. So I actually went in with 3 different colours, and they are Muscadine Wine, Plum Crazy and Barn Red. So I wanted to create a base colour that was contrasting to the final colour, which I knew was going to be a turquoisey bluey kind of colour. So all I did was basically got those 3 colours, got 3 different premium chip brushes, and basically just applied it on in a very random way. So there was no rhyme or reason to this, and I will add that this piece was waxed. So before I started painting, the wax was stripped. And I do have another video on my YouTube channel if you want to know about that process in detail, but I thought I'd skip that part for this video because, well, I've already done it, so it's already on my channel. Anyway, so I applied those 3 colours in quite a random fashion, just basically just splodging a bit here and there, just to kind of get a little bit of tonal variation to that base colour. What I didn't want was one flat colour. So I zoomed in a bit here. You can see that the main colour is Muscadine Wine, and then I add little pockets of the Plum Crazy and the Barn Red just for some highlights, and like I say, a little bit of tonal variation. These 3 colours are actually really nice to blend with and work with, so I have noted that down in somewhere in my brain to potentially work with those 3 colours on another piece again, because they actually work really well together, just those colours on their own. So you can see there is literally no rhyme or reason to how I am applying this. I'm kind of just doing it by eye. The Muscadine Wine is obviously one of the deeper colours, so I'm using that for a bit of shading, but then I am adding some of the Plum Crazy in the higher points, and that's just really to add a little bit of dimension, like I mentioned earlier. I'm also not removing the hardware. I'm going to be kind of painting over that a little bit, but not completely, just to kind of get a kind of a boho-y, rustic-y kind of finish. So the next colour I'm going to use is Tree Frog Green. Stick with the process, trust the process. It looks random, but it believe me, it worked in the end. And I'm also going to add a little bit of sea spray into my mixture. So sea spray is a textured powder, a texturizing powder, I should say. And you add it into your paint to create lots and lots of different decorative finishes. The thing that I'm going to do to this, which I don't normally do, is actually add some water in to this mixture. So what I'm going to create over the top of that plummy, purpley, reddy kind of base colour is washes of lots and lots of different colours, in hope that they will sort of, you can see them through each other. But what the sea spray is going to do is kind of add a little bit of gritty texture. So it's not going to be applied completely smoothly. It's going to have a little bit of grit to it as well. So you can see what I mean about it being a wash. I'm still using my water mister. That's just got normal tap water in, and I'm spritzing that on so that I don't get complete coverage, because I still want that base colour to basically show through the washes of paint that I'm going to be applying. And I'm applying the Tree Frog Green pretty randomly. It looks horrendous at the moment. Again, trust the process. I'm applying it with a premium chip brush and altering the brush strokes that I'm applying it with. So I'm stippling it on in areas, and I'm also going to brush it on in areas. But then what I'm going to do is wipe some of this back so that that base colour is, you can basically see it through. So I'm just spritzing it with water, and then I'm going to dab areas and wipe back in other areas, just so you can see that plummy colour coming through, but still leaving some of that green in areas as well. So I have sped this bit up quite a lot because it is just me applying the tree frog green over that base colour, and it is worth noting that the base colour is completely dry. So I left that to dry overnight before I started layering up these greens and blues, which you're going to see in a sec. So I'm just really having a play around and placing the green where I kind of think I want some, and then taking a little bit off and adding a bit more. And it's worth just kind of building this up slowly. You can see that I'm working in small areas. I'm not doing the whole piece at once. I'm kind of going in smaller areas. That's how I prefer to work when I'm doing this kind of effect. And you can see that I'm letting the paint kind of drip down to the floor. Probably should have put some kind of drop cloth down underneath. But if you watch me before, you'll know that I always think of these things when it's way too late. So yeah, I'm just layering up those greens, and I'm also in areas going back over where I've applied the green already. So it's got a couple of layers of green where I want it to stand out more. So hopefully you can see the kind of effect that I'm going for. The green probably won't be really prominent when I've layered the other colours up, but it is definitely one of those things where the layers add such depth and interest to your piece. So for the next colour, I chose Cobalt Blue, which is a really vivid electric blue. It's such a good colour. And I left the tree frog green to dry for about an hour. So it was dry, but not fully dry. And that's okay, because, you know, if it kind of mixed together in some of the areas where it might have been a bit wet, then I'm absolutely fine with that. So I'm pretty much doing exactly the same thing. I'm just layering that cobalt blue. Again, it was a mixture with water and a little bit of sea spray, just to give a little bit of that grittiness that I want. And again, just layering it up, spritzing it with water, taking some off with a rag, and just really making sure those colours were in the right position and ready for the next colour. Again, left that to dry for about an hour, and I did have my heater on, so that will obviously speed up the dry time. Next colour that I used is Mermaid Tail, one of my favourites. But I do say that a lot about most of the colours in the Dixie Belle range. And again, I'm adding sea spray to it. This time I'm adding a little bit less water. So it is slightly looser than the ordinary consistency of paint when you add sea spray to it, but it's not going to give me such a transparent wash. This colour is going to be one of the main colours that you see on the piece, so I wanted that to be obviously a stronger colour than the previous colours to it. And again, I'm kind of using the same technique, so I'm spraying it in areas to kind of get those base colours to show through. Again, working in really small areas so that it doesn't dry before I get a chance to do this kind of thing to it. And you'll notice that if you hold your water in one particular area and spray it for longer, obviously that will make the paint run down the piece. I don't want this piece to look drippy necessarily, but I just want those base colours to show through without having to distress or sand back. So after I'd applied that initial coat of mermaid tail, I went in with a sponge. Actually, I'm applying this with a blue applicator sponge, which I cut in half, and I'm using that mixture of mermaid tail, sea spray and a little bit of water. So I'm using that existing mixture and I'm just basically dabbing it on for a softer look. So you can see me removing it off as well with a rag. It's just about playing with layers and texture. So I wanted a softness to this finish. I didn't want too harsh a look with kind of distressing. I just wanted it to look really soft and weathered. So my thoughts behind using the sponge, which is something that I don't usually do, I just thought it'd give a real sort of softness to it, and it kind of worked, I think. I hope it did. Let me know if you agree or disagree. So yeah, it's just really about building up those layers, and I kept sitting back and looking at it and seeing if I was happy, and adding a bit more blue and distressing it a bit with a rag. So I was distressing this while it was wet, so that's why it's giving that kind of softer look versus if you were to sand it all back, that'd give you a little slightly different look altogether. So the final colour in this 7-colour lineup is the Gulf. I'm applying this just to kind of bring it all together, and it works really well with Mermaid Tail. It's a similar tone, and I'm applying it with the Best Dang brush, which is a natural bristle brush, and I'm using a dry brush technique. So what that means is adding some paint onto the brush, removing almost all of the paint off the bristles, and then I just kind of swirled it on, and again left pockets of Mermaid Tail and the other colours appearing through, so it wasn't a completely full coverage coat. And the other thing that I'm doing as well as I'm working is wet distressing. So I get a cloth and apply some water to it so it's damp, and then just rub back in areas around the door frame just to reveal all of those layers of colours that I built up in the previous clips. I know I said I was wet distressing to avoid sanding, but I can't resist a little bit of distressing around drawer edges. And for those of you that ask, I get asked quite a lot why I would paint with the drawers in. Obviously it's for the purpose of the video most of the time, but it's just personal preference how I like to paint. But rest assured, I always go back and clean up around the edges. Quite often I'll distress around drawers if it's for a particular look. Again, I took the drawer out, sanded all of the inside where, you know, the paint had kind of ran over the line a little bit. And I also distress around the edges there where the drawer fits back in, just to give a bit of definition. Once I distressed all over, I am now going to apply Best Dang Wax in clear all over the piece. This is to just give a really gorgeous soft sheen. If you watched me before, you know I am partial to wax. It's just a finish that I prefer. And I am using the other half of the blue sponge that I cut in half, waste not, want not. So I'm using that to apply the wax all over the piece. And then after about 20 minutes or so, I buffed it off with a dry microfibre cloth. One of the last things I should say I'm going to do is add some Best Dang Wax in brown. So I'm adding this around the drawer edges. You can see obviously they're recessed and there's a little bit of detail on them. And I'm also going to use it around the handle. You can apply it fairly liberally. Don't forget we've also added a coat of clear wax underneath this, so we have real good control if we want to remove the excess, which I'm going to do in a minute. So that's looking pretty dark. So to remove the excess, I used the original blue sponge that I applied the clear wax with. And this is going to act like an eraser. Because we've put that layer of clear wax on first, it gives more control over the coloured wax. So I am just basically using that sponge to wipe off the brown wax in the areas that I don't want it, and leave it in the areas that I do. Last but not least, I just wanted to highlight some of that metal work. You can see that I did go over this with the paint, and that's intentional, because I just wanted a really kind of rustic look and weathered. But now I am using Gilding Wax in copper just to give a little bit of contrast against the blue paintwork. And I'm applying it with my finger. So Gilding Wax is permanent, it's oil based, and it will go over metal and, well, pretty much anything, to be honest. So I'm just using my finger because I don't want full coverage of the copper. Again, the metalwork underneath is quite a dark colour, so I want that to kind of show through. I don't want this to be completely copper. I just want it to kind of have a little hint of copper. I said it was last but not least, but I was wrong. So the actual last thing that I did was give that wood grain on the inside of the cabinet a bit of a refresh with Big Mama's butter. I used the Orange Grove scent because it smells absolutely divine, and my customers always comment how gorgeous my furniture smells when it arrives at their house. So it's one of my favourite scents. I absolutely love it. This again is an oil-based product. I'm applying it with the La Petite brush. It's a small handled natural bristle brush, and it's perfect for just getting in corners because it has a tapered end. So I'm just applying it liberally all over the inside of the cabinet, and then remove the excess with a dry cloth, and it just buffs it to a gorgeous sheen, nourishes the wood, and just brings the wood grain out beautifully. So that's it, it's done. Here's a shot of the inside. You can see the Big Mama's butter has really brought that wood grain out. And here is one of my all-time favourite shots of this piece. I love this corner. I love all the colours that you can see and all those layers coming through underneath. And this is the final stage shot. I absolutely love this piece, and I hope you do as well. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below, and make sure you are subscribing to my channel.